It started with a subtle move, something my mother-in-law, Evelyn, slipped into my glass when she thought no one was watching. A special cocktail for my favorite son-in-law, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I smiled back, but quietly swapped my drink with her husband's, my father-in-law, Richard, the man who never missed a chance to belittle my work. My name is Marcus Caldwell. I'm 33 years old, an independent documentary filmmaker based in Portland, Oregon. I've built my career from scratch, small films, local festivals, environmental documentaries, the kind of work that pays the bills if you're good, and I am. But to Evelyn and Richard, my passion was never enough. Richard would scoff at family dinners, asking, "Still just playing with cameras, Marcus? When will you get a real job?" Evelyn played the part of the doting mother, but I knew better. Behind the smiles were eyes calculating, judging every move I made. My wife, Sarah, would gently squeeze my hand beneath the table, silently apologizing for her parents. That Friday, I returned from filming a challenging environmental project in the Oregon wilderness, days spent battling rain and mud to capture footage that would hopefully make an impact. Exhausted, I agreed to attend Evelyn's birthday dinner. I should have trusted the uneasy feeling gnawing in my stomach the moment Evelyn cornered me in the kitchen and handed me that drink, her hands trembling slightly as she said, "I made this especially for you." Something was off, but I couldn't yet grasp how deep the danger ran. Sarah and I met 6 years ago at a local film festival where my short documentary was screening. She was finishing her master's in environmental science, passionate about making a difference in the world, just like me. We connected instantly. She understood my need to tell stories through the lens, and I admired her fierce dedication to protecting the planet. But her parents, Evelyn and Richard, were another story entirely. From the start, Richard made it clear he had imagined a different future for his daughter, one with a stable corporate job, a predictable life, and a big paycheck. Evelyn was more subtle, praising my films while quietly questioning when I'd settle down into something more practical. At family gatherings, I was introduced not as their son-in-law, but as the filmmaker, as if I was a guest passing through rather than family. For years, I tried to win them over. I brought fine wines to dinners, showed them published work, name-dropped clients. Nothing changed. At Christmas, I overheard Evelyn on the phone, sneering, "Sarah could have married someone like Daniel, steady, well off, but she picked the dreamer." Richard was blunt. When Sarah and I announced we were trying for a baby, he pulled me aside and said, "Kids are expensive. Maybe think about a real job before you bring one into the world." I never told Sarah. She loved her parents despite their flaws. I didn't want to make her choose. The night of Evelyn's birthday, I was bone-tired but put on a clean shirt and headed to their grand house in the wealthy part of town. Dinner began as usual. Richard boasted about a recent business deal, Evelyn fussed over the table settings, Sarah's brother and his wife exchanged polite small talk. I nursed a beer, counting the minutes. After the main course, Evelyn disappeared into the kitchen and returned with 2 glasses of her homemade sangria. That's when I saw it. As I approached, she discreetly dropped something colorless and odorless from a small vial into one glass, the one meant for me. When she turned and smiled, "This one's special, just for you," her hands shook ever so slightly. I took both glasses, placing the one she'd tampered with in front of Richard and kept the other for myself. 45 minutes later, Richard was pale, sweating, rushing to the bathroom as violent sounds echoed through the house. Evelyn's face drained of color when she realized what had happened. Our eyes met across the table. In that moment, I knew 2 things with chilling clarity. My mother-in-law had tried to poison me. And she knew that I knew. I didn't confront Evelyn that night. I sat quietly, eating my dessert while Sarah rushed to check on her father. Richard insisted it was food poisoning. Evelyn stammered something about bad shellfish. But I knew better. Later, I slipped the untouched glass meant for me into my pocket. Something inside me had shifted, the anger wasn't fiery or impulsive, it was cold and calculated. I wasn't going to let this go. But I wouldn't fight on their terms either. I would make them face exactly who they were. Monday morning, I took the glass to a trusted friend, Dr. James, a forensic toxicologist who once helped on one of my documentaries. "This glass?" he asked, inspecting it carefully. "Family matter," I said. 3 days later, he called. "Marcus, there are benzodiazepines in the drink. Not enough to kill, but enough to knock someone out, 'cause memory loss or disorientation." I thanked him and asked for a written report. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly gathered evidence. Evelyn had prescriptions for anxiety medications from multiple doctors, and rumors floated around town about strange behavior, accusations she tried to manipulate others, secrets her family desperately wanted to keep hidden. I compiled everything. Then waited for the right moment. That moment came when Sarah mentioned Evelyn wanted photos taken for a social media profile, and asked if I'd do it. I agreed. The following Saturday, I showed up alone, camera bag in one hand, a sealed envelope in the other. Evelyn greeted me, makeup perfect, dressed to impress. Before we began, I handed her the envelope. Inside was the toxicology report, copies of her prescriptions, and printed whispers of her reputation. Her hands trembled as she read. "This is absurd," she whispered. "I would never." "We both know what happened," I interrupted, voice steady. Evelyn's face hardened, her eyes cold as ice. "You're not good enough for my daughter," she spat. "You never will be. A man should provide security, not chase dreams with a camera." I kept my voice calm, measured. "And drugging your daughter's husband is how you provide security?" She snapped back, voice sharp, "It wasn't to hurt you, just to make you miss that ridiculous film premiere you keep talking about. To show Sarah you're unreliable." I let the words hang in the air. Then I said, "Here's what happens next. You tell Richard what you did. You both start treating me with respect, not because you suddenly like me, but because the alternative is Sarah finding out the truth about you." Evelyn laughed, but it was hollow. "She'll never believe you over us." I packed up my camera bag. "Maybe not. But she'll believe the lab report. The prescriptions. And the neighbors you've alienated." I turned and walked out, leaving her trembling in the silence. That night, Evelyn called Sarah, crying, accusing me of being hostile and inappropriate during the photo session. When Sarah confronted me, I couldn't hide it anymore. I showed her everything, the lab report, the prescriptions, even hostile texts from her mother over the years. "My mother wouldn't do this," she whispered, but the doubt was unmistakable in her voice. The next day, she faced her parents. When she returned, eyes red from crying, she said quietly, "Dad says it's all a misunderstanding, that I'm just insecure about Marcus's career." I nodded. I expected this. For 2 weeks, Sarah barely spoke to me. She visited her parents alone, returning with red eyes and growing doubt. I buried myself in work, spending long hours editing footage in my studio, hoping the storm would pass. Then, one evening, a package arrived at my door, no return address, just my name in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a USB drive and a note, "You need to see this. Vanessa." Vanessa was Sarah's sister-in-law, Owen's wife, someone I barely knew but who I soon learned had her own story. The USB held hours of security footage from Richard and Evelyn's house. There it was, Evelyn in the kitchen, clearly slipping something into a drink. Then me entering, taking the glasses. Richard drinking from the tampered glass, and moments later, his sickening collapse. But it didn't end there. More footage showed Evelyn and Richard arguing about me. "She knows what you did," Richard said angrily. "So what?" Evelyn shot back. "It's his word against mine. Sarah will never choose him over family." Vanessa's voice trembled on the phone when I called her. "They tried the same with us, tried to break Owen and me apart for years. I couldn't stand by and watch it happen again." The next day, I received a message from Richard, "We need to talk. Man to man." No wives. We met at his country club, a private room where the scent of bourbon hung heavy. Richard sat back, swirling his glass. Marcus, families are complicated. Evelyn can be difficult, but she means well. I looked him straight in the eye. Drugging someone means well? He waved dismissively. It was a misunderstanding. She takes meds for anxiety, probably mixed up the glasses. I pulled out the security footage on my phone. Richard's face hardened, the charm slipping away. What do you want? Money, he sneered. No. I want you both to leave us alone. Stop trying to convince Sarah I'm not good enough. Stop interfering. Richard leaned in, voice low and threatening. You think this is the first time we've dealt with someone like you? People who want to take advantage of our family? He laughed coldly. Sarah will come home. She always does. He mentioned Sarah's ex, Thomas, with bitterness. Ask her about him. History repeats. On the drive home, I called Sarah's college roommate. She was perfect for her, Bethany said quietly. But her parents planted lies, made her doubt him. It tore them apart. It wasn't just about me. It was about control. Complete control over Sarah's life. And they'd done it before. I didn't tell Sarah everything right away. Instead, I quietly dug deeper. I reached out to Thomas, Sarah's ex, who was hesitant at first but agreed to share emails and messages revealing how her parents sabotaged their relationship. I contacted other old friends and exes, piecing together a pattern. Anyone encouraging Sarah's independence was pushed away. Vanessa sent more footage, conversations between Evelyn and Richard plotting to break us apart. I've started planting doubts about their marriage, Evelyn said coldly. By the time I'm done, Sarah will be asking for a divorce, and it'll seem like her idea. I invited Owen and Vanessa over for dinner, without telling Sarah. Over dessert, I connected my laptop to the TV. There's something you all need to see, I said. For an hour, we watched the videos, the texts, the betrayals. Sarah sat motionless, pale. Owen shook his head in disbelief. When it ended, Sarah looked at me, tears streaming. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you needed to see it all. Not just what they did to me, but what they've been doing to you your whole life. The next day, Sarah faced Evelyn and Richard. I wasn't there, but when she came home, her eyes were red from crying. My father says it's all a misunderstanding, she said softly. That I'm insecure about Marcus's career. I nodded silently. I had expected this reaction. For 2 weeks, she barely spoke to me, visiting her parents alone and returning with more doubt. I threw myself into work, waiting for the storm to pass. Then came the turning point, a package from Vanessa with a USB full of security footage showing Evelyn's actions and the couple's plans to manipulate Sarah's marriage. With this, I had undeniable proof. I invited Owen and Vanessa over again. Together, we confronted Evelyn and Richard, playing every clip and revealing every secret. Despite their denials and attempts to discredit me, the evidence was overwhelming. Sarah finally stood up, voice strong and clear. I love you both, but what you've done is unforgivable. You don't get to control my life anymore. Owen nodded in agreement. Evelyn's tears weren't remorse, they were the tears of losing control. Richard looked stunned, as if he couldn't believe his children were standing up to him. Before leaving, I handed Richard a USB drive containing all the footage, emails, and testimonies. What's this supposed to mean? He asked, suspicious. It means I'm not going to ruin your reputation by sharing this, unless you try to interfere again. Then copies go to your business partners, your social circles, everyone. For the first time, Richard looked at me with something like respect. I underestimated you. Yes, I said simply. 6 months later, Sarah and Owen began therapy to heal the wounds their parents caused. Evelyn and Richard kept their distance, respecting boundaries. During the holidays, they invited us for dinner, a cautious step toward a fresh start. The invitation was Sarah's idea. When we arrived, everything seemed normal. Richard even offered me a partnership in his firm, a gesture of respect. I declined politely. That spring, I opened my own gallery in downtown Portland. Sarah stood beside me, our daughter Eliza in her arms. Evelyn and Richard came too, distant, but present. They didn't try to control us anymore. I didn't win by playing their game. I won by refusing to play it at all. By standing my ground, protecting what mattered, and building my life on my own terms. That's the sweetest revenge of all. If you've ever faced challenges from those closest to you, remember, standing your ground and living life on your own terms is the real victory. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales of resilience and revenge. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to fight for your happiness against the odds? I want to hear your story.